Hi everyone, and welcome to Lazy Lion. Halloween is almost upon us, and with that, we felt the sudden urge to share an anime series that's sure to send shivers down your spine. Ghost Hunt. Now, we've recommended it a few times before, and after rewatching it again and finding it just as delightfully creepy as the last, we thought, heck, why not give it its own video? It definitely deserves it. And just a word of caution, don't let the fact that it's animated give you a false sense of security, because there are moments in this series that will seriously have you jumping out of your seat. I would know. The first time I watched this, I made the mistake of watching it alone, in my basement, at night, in the dark. To say I was constantly looking over my shoulder and jumping at every little noise my house made would not be an understatement. But who knows, maybe this lazy lion is just a scaredy cat. I mean, lions have been known to be cowardly before. But it's also possible though that maybe, just maybe, this show is genuinely scary. Of course, there's really only one way to find out, and that's to watch it for yourselves. So for those of you who like scary stories about the occult and supernatural, but also want to learn more about the art of ghost hunting, then gather round and join us as we go over the story and creative process of Ghost Hunt, as well as the history of the supernatural in Japan. And should you choose to watch this series with the lights on, well, we promise we won't judge you. We will perhaps judge you if you're not already subscribed to this channel though. Just kidding. But if you do like this video, please make sure to leave us a like and subscribe to let us know. Now that that's out of the way, let's dive into this frightfully good anime. Cue the intro. Our spooky tale starts off with a group of 3 high school students staying late after school one day to play a game. The game is simple. Each person will take a turn telling a ghost story, and after they've finished their tale, they must turn their flashlight off. At the end, when everyone has had their turn, and all the lights are off, the countdown begins. Slowly, one by one, each person will call out a number that follows. 1, 2, 3. Now, if a 4th person should answer, then they'll know they're not alone. Ooh, spooky! But our protagonist Mai Taniyama doesn't actually believe in the supernatural. She does, however, enjoy a good ghost story. So when they arrive at the last story, an eerie tale about the old school building next door being haunted, she's satisfyingly terrified. However, soon comes the moment of truth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now really, the last thing Mai ever expected was for a ghost to actually answer back. And a quick scan of the room after the lights turn back on reveals not a ghost, but that in fact a boy was the culprit behind the prank. Relieved by his presence, Mai's friends quickly gravitate towards the dubious, albeit handsome, stranger, while Mai, on the other hand, keeps her distance. As far as she's concerned, this boy, who clearly doesn't go to their school, is suspicious, especially when he asks if he can return tomorrow and join them in their game. What could he be playing at? Well, the next morning on her way to school, Mai passes by the old school building. And after her friend's story the day before, she can't help wanting to take a closer look. Could it really be haunted? When she peers into one of the windows, she sees what oddly looks like a camera. Well, that's strange. As she enters the building to have a closer look, she's startled by someone calling out to her and knocks over some storage units, only to ironically also be knocked over. Oh my, don't you know curiosity killed the cat? When she gets up, she comes face to face with the boy from yesterday. Turns out his name is Kazuya Shibuya, and he is the 17-year-old president of the Shibuya Psychic Research Company, a group that researches supernatural phenomenon, which would explain why he's there. Kazuya was hired by the school's principal to find out if the legend about the old school building was true. A job that Mai has now jeopardized when it's revealed that not only did she break one of Kazuya's high-tech ghost hunting cameras, but she also injured his trusty assistant Lin when she accidentally knocked over all those shelves. So to pay them back, Mai now has to assist Kazuya on his ghost hunting assignments. Good thing Mai said she likes ghost stories. Now she'll get an opportunity to study them up close and personal. I mean, it's not like ghosts are actually real anyway. Right? Right? Hey guys! Right? The Ghost Hunt series first started out as a series of light novels written by the fantasy horror author Fuyumi Ono, who incidentally also wrote the popular series The 12 Kingdoms and Shiki, both of which have also been turned into anime series. The Ghost Hunt novels, which follow a group of psychic investigators who travel around Japan looking into mysterious cases that hint of the supernatural, soon reached an even larger audience when it got turned into a radio drama in 1997. And then, a year after that, in 1998, Ono worked together with the illustrator Shiho Inada in order to adapt her light novels into a manga, which was published in Nakayoshi magazine. This was a partnership that would continue when in 2006 the anime studio JC staff reached out to not only Ono but also Inada in order to turn the Ghost Hunt manga into an animated series. A series that would go on to have all 25 episodes broadcast on TV Tokyo, but which can luckily now be streamed over on Crunchyroll. Of course, before moving on to the themes, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the music of Ghost Hunt. Because if you ask anyone who knows anything about the thriller horror genres, they'll tell you that the music is an essential part of the storytelling process. It's what creates that spine-tingling atmosphere and helps build up tension to deliver that perfect jump scare. And JC staff did a great job hiring Masuda Toshio to compose the Ghost Hunt soundtrack. You've likely heard some of his work before if you've watched other series such as Naruto, Mushishi, or even Kami-sama Kiss. Now, Toshio is a master when it comes to blending traditional instruments like the shamisen and shakuhachi with more modern sounds. This helps him create a perfect blend of eerie supernatural spookiness that'll have you feeling like you're not alone. As we mentioned earlier, the Shibuya Psychic Research Company is made up of a group of investigators who look into supernatural cases. What's really fascinating about the group, though, is that it's made up of members from all different backgrounds. We have a Buddhist monk, a medium, a Catholic priest, a clairvoyant, a shrine maiden, a psychic, and an omnioji. And the reason we found this so riveting was that it offers the viewer an insight into Japan's many different beliefs. Be it folklore, legends, myths, religions, it's all here. Ghost Hunt is like a brief intro into the history of the supernatural in Japan, which we personally thought was great. In this section, we thought we'd give you all a quick rundown of what these are. And if after all this you still want to know more, we'll have a deeper dive available over on our blog, so check it out. But for now though, let's start with the first one on the list. Shinto, the way of the gods. The Shinto religion is introduced to us by the character Ayako Matsuzaki, SPR's self-appointed Miko or shrine maiden. Miko, or priestesses, are typically young maidens who live at a temple and perform sacred duties, such as purifications and exorcisms. They also create defensive talismans called sutras and can use kujien, which is a protective mantra. Now, the really interesting thing about Shinto is that it's actually been around since the prehistory of Japan. It's the belief that the kami, which are deities, reside in all things of the natural world: a mountain, a stream, a tree, etc. Because of this, there was a great emphasis on maintaining harmony between humans and the natural world around them. Then, in the 6th and 7th century, we see Shinto evolve to include a visual anthropomorphization of existing deities. This is when gods like Amaterasu, the sun goddess, first got their human forms. This was mainly so the royal family could claim to be descendants of the supreme goddess, thus giving them the divine right to rule over the land. What can I say? Humans. Next we have Buddhism. Buddhism is based on the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, or the Buddha, also known as the Awakened One. Buddha teaches that through self-discipline and leading a life devoid of indulgences, one can reach enlightenment. It's not hard to see how this would have appealed to the general population. And so, though this started in the northeastern region of India in the 5th century BCE, which would be modern-day Nepal, it quickly spread through Asia, and by the 1st century CE it had made its way to China thanks to the Silk Roads. By the 3rd century it had reached Korea, who would then go on to send a diplomatic mission to Japan in the 6th century, where they offered gifts that included an image of the Buddha, some ritual objects, along with several volumes of sacred Buddhist texts. An interesting fact is that before this, Japan had no writing system in place, and academics theorize it was through these religious scripts that Japan was introduced to the Chinese writing system, which ultimately went on to become kanji. Now, after the introduction of Buddhism, it was modified to fit in with Japan's existing lifestyle, when they found a way to combine their pre-existing beliefs from Shinto with their new teachings of Buddha. Another fun fact, ghost hunts Buddhist monk Hosho Takigawa claims to be a monk from Mount Koya, which is the largest religious center of Buddhist study in Japan, and has been named a World Heritage Site by UNESCO since 2004, calling it a beautiful natural site where Japanese tradition, Shintoism, and Buddhism all come together as one. Then we have the practice of Omnyodo, the way of yin and yang. This practice is based on the principles of yin-yang along with wuxing, which translates to the 5 elements. These are fire, wood, water, metal, and earth. It's thought that these forces are what control all earthly life, and those who master Omnyodo are called Omnyoji. Now, an Omnyoji was considered someone of high esteem in the government and worked directly within the imperial court. Their main job was to offer prayers and conduct divinations, usually by conferring with the heavens. And by that, we mean stars, like astrology. Through this, they were able to pick auspicious days that would help those within the court decide on important matters. They were also said to be able to ward off evil that could cause such things as natural disasters or sicknesses. They could also create curses to use against enemies, and were also said to have the cool ability to summon and control Shikigami. In short, they're basically wizards. In Ghost Hunt, the Omnyoji is represented by SPR's very own yin-yang master, Lin Kojo. Lin works as Kazuya's assistant/guardian within the group, and is originally from Hong Kong. This was interesting since, though Omnyodo is something specifically found in Japan, the foundations it's built on are all things that were brought over to Japan from China by way of a Korean monk called Hua Luke in the 7th century. Moving on to Christianity. Here we have one of the more capable members of the SPR group, John Brown, a Catholic priest who's originally from Australia and who mysteriously has a Kansai accent when he speaks. Unlike his colleagues, John is the only one who can safely perform exorcisms on people, making him a valuable member of the team. But how did a prominently Western religion make its way to Japan? In 1549, which was then the Sengoku period in Japan, the Spanish Catholic missionary, Francis Xavier, launched his first Christian mission in Japan on behalf of the Portuguese Empire. By this point, Portugal had already begun trade with Japan, and was hoping to gain a further foothold in the country. Catholicism soon gained popularity with the aid of many Japanese regional lords, or daimyo, who wanted to snatch power away from the Buddhist monks and Shinto priests who they felt were gaining too much influence. This led to the persecution of many, as well as the destruction of existing temples. Seeing the growing force the Catholic Church was becoming, the shogunate feared that this shift in power was destabilizing the country, and that this turmoil would lead some outside powers to think that they could take over Japan. So in 1587, a ban was placed on Christianity under penalty of death. This ban was held until 1858. 5 years after Commodore Matthew Perry arrived with his fleet of black ships and forced Japan to open back up its ports and rekindle its trade with the West. At this point, Japan had freedom of religion, and missionaries began to come back to Japan, and all those Japanese Christians who had escaped persecution and been in hiding all those years could finally worship out in the open once again. Lastly, we have psychics/espers. Here, we'll be grouping our last 3 SPR members: Masako Hara, a medium, Mai, a clairvoyant, and Kazuya, a psychic with psychokinetic abilities. Now, how did ESP and psychic phenomenon become popular in Japan? Well, that's easy. It's all thanks to the Victorians. No, really. During that time, Japan was openly embracing Western culture. And a part of that was the West's avid fascination with the occult and mysticism. The original SPR, the Society for Psychical Research, was even founded in London in the year 1882. Then, in 1909, a woman by the name of Mifune Kawai Chizuko helped popularize the spiritualist movement further in Japan by broadcasting her clairvoyant abilities. Soon, more and more people began claiming to possess similar psychic powers. And so, since then, the fascination with ESP has continued to live on, cementing itself within all our imaginations. So if you're looking for a spooky good time, Ghost Hunt isn't a bad way to go. We usually recommend it when talking about another series we've covered, Witch Hunter Robin. The biggest difference between the two is that while Witch Hunter Robin had an underlying plot throughout the whole series, Ghost Hunt really is just about a team working together to solve cases as they come, with each case lasting about 2 to 4 episodes. As soon as that case is resolved, they move on to the next one. It's basically an anthology of ghost stories, and boy, are some of those stories terrifying. If you were one of those kids who liked watching Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark, or you just liked sitting around campfires and listening to ghost stories and urban legends, then this show is for you. Just remember, we did warn you. Oh, and don't go looking for romance here. The author has made it abundantly clear that she wasn't interested in telling that kind of story. That doesn't mean you can't fantasize about one, though. There's definitely enough material between the lines for you to build your own ships if you so desire. Another thing we feel you should know is that the anime story isn't 100% complete. So if you want to find out more, you should read the novels. Though, from what we've read, even those end in a bit of a mystery. Which is pretty on brand for ghost stories, I guess. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to click that like button to let us know. And you can also hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, stay obsessed.